Now, you are a Zurich-based Korean-American women's wear designer.
The most exciting moment that I could ever have as a designer is when I finished the garment. We are at the fashion show site. Music runs and the first model goes with my clothes out of the catwalk. And this adrenaline and this happiness is something that I cannot really describe.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Genesis Studios in Zurich. My name is Ana Maria Montero. I'm going to introduce this great gentleman in just a moment. But what you're going to experience tonight is the second of a series of masterclass discussions in Zurich that are hosted, of course, by Genesis and take place here in the studio on Bahnhofstrasse. Now, the topic for tonight is entrepreneurship and fashion, and how being audacious, progressive, and distinctly Korean can contribute to success in this field, as we will see from our special guest. Now, before we meet her and to help set the stage, I am now going to hand it over to this gentleman that many of you may already know, but he is the area manager for Genesis Switzerland, Pier Giorgio Cecco, and I must say, employee number one of Genesis Switzerland, if I may. Giorgio.
Vielen Dank, Anna Maria. Ich werde Deutsch sprechen und wir werden auch eine Übersetzung haben, weil die Nina Yuun, die später dann kommt, sie spricht lieber Englisch, obwohl sie sehr gut Deutsch spricht, aber sie spricht lieber Englisch, also soll sie sich in Englisch ausdrucken können, sodass das wirklich genau rüberkommt. So, willkommen hier bei Genesis Switzerland in Zürich an der Bahnhofstrasse 62, wo wir 2100 Quadratmeter belegen. Genesis ist eine südkoreanische Marke natürlich und bietet das erste Mal ein Luxusprodukt in Europa. Und wir machen das audacious, distinctly Korean und natürlich auch progressive. Jetzt, wenn ich Ihnen alles erzähle, dann sind wir morgen noch hier. Aber für uns, distinctly Korean ist wahrscheinlich das Wichtigste und das ist, was ich am Anfang nicht verstanden hatte. Distinctly Korean da geht es darum, Luxus neu zu definieren und unseren Kunden möglichst wenig Zeit zu stehlen. Also ein Autobesitzer soll mit uns keine Zeit verlieren. Wir haben ein GPA, eine Genesis Personal Assistant, die sich um das Ganze kümmert rundherum. Also sie kriegen wirklich nur Mobilität und alles andere machen wir. Aber jetzt möchte ich keine Zeit mehr vergeuden, weil wir viel interessantere Sachen haben, die wir heute lernen können. Und darum gebe ich zurück an Anna Maria. Vielen Dank.
Vielen Dank, Pier Giorgio. So now I'd like to introduce, as we've said, Nina Yuun. A warm introduction to the stage. Round of applause, everybody. Hello, Nina. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. Please take a seat. And just as a side note to everyone, we will have time for questions and answers at the end. So feel free to, keep them in mind and follow up towards the end of the interview. We'd be happy to hear from all of you. So without further ado, Nina, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you are a Zurich-based Korean-American women's wear designer who focuses on a combination of clean, refined cuts and colors, creating versatile staple pieces for living lotus under the zero waste principle. Now, we're going to get to that a little bit later. But again, so lovely to have you. And I have to ask, is that one of your designs that you're wearing?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I assume that there's a certain pressure, right, to wear your clothes.
Yeah. I thought about bringing one for you, but I was a little bit short of my stock right now.
Next time. Okay, so you're also Zurich-based, so you didn't have to come very far, I am assuming. And I heard you came here in a very nice ride.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, it was was really nice to be picked up by someone, and it was a GV70 model. I think it was very fancy. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I have to say my dad used to drive one of the Genesis.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I got reminded.
Okay, so that wasn't a totally new experience for you.
Yeah.
So in a car, like, I mean, I assume some of you have already had the opportunity to check out the cars here in the showroom if you weren't familiar with them beforehand. And I did get to also peruse a bit, but the reason I bring that up is because there's so much attention to detail, which I am sure is something that you, as a designer, you share. I mean, you make and source your clothing. So how important is this element of detail to you?
Oh, it's for me very important because every single detail leads to my customer's heart, and it's all about winning their mind, winning their heart, to stay with my brand, stay with Nina Yuun, to share my world.
Korean fashion is heralded as one of the most, some of the best in the world. So were you also nurtured by that environment?
Yeah, I think it was inevitably affecting me because it was always dynamic and always people following the trend, and yeah, definitely.
And what motivated you then to pursue your dream to be a fashion designer? I mean, at what point did you just say, okay, now I'm going to be audacious and I'm going to make that leap and I'm going to start my own fashion label?
There's quite long list of things to do as Korean. At some point, I was thinking, after working for several other brands, if they can do it, I can also do it. And actually, after my master class in Basel, I couldn't find a very attractive job, so I thought I'll just do my own. Yeah.
So it sounds like being an entrepreneur for you was intentional. You really said it's not that you fell into having your own business. You just really said, no, now I'm going to run my own ship. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it has been always in my corner of my head, and I thought it was just the time.
What is the most important part of your work? What's that part that really makes you get out of bed in the morning?
I think that's the most exciting moment that I could ever have as a designer is when I finish the garment. We are at the fashion show site. Music runs, and the first model goes with my clothes out of the catwalk. And this adrenaline and this happiness is something that I cannot really describe.
Do you remember that first moment?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Where was it?
Yeah, I was in Zurich with Motsu's team.
Okay.
And yeah, it was 2018 September.
So if we look at the lows then, so we've done the highs and we look at the lows, what are those things that make you not want to get out of bed and make you hide underneath your covers?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that is connected to numbers, that I have to do Excel sheets and long calculations. Yeah. This is something that I'm really not a fan of.
I feel you. So what would you recommend to someone who is looking to be an entrepreneur and really start their own business? What would you say to them?
I think I would say just do it. I actually still consider myself such a newbie and a beginner, but at any point of your life, I think there's some kind of risk, and I would just tell them to take the risk.
Now I want to come back a bit to your designs. You said that you're inspired by your Korean-Swiss heritage. What does this mean? I mean, how does this reflected in your collections and pieces?
I have been thinking that since living here in Switzerland, it has been 6 years now, it has quite a common sight in fashion scene that people likes to be elegant but not too flashy. In a vulgar way, and I think that's quite a strong common side. And also that's the reason why Nina Yuun is working well, because I also like this kind of style. Yeah.
Now, earlier when I introduced you, we mentioned this concept that your pieces are for living lotus under the zero waste principle. Walk me through what that is exactly. What is it to live lotus?
Yeah. First of all, living lotus is something that I use as a metaphor. Even though seasonal inspiration always comes and goes, changes, my ideal clientele, the customer that I want to dress, is always the same. The person, no matter of the gender, person who has kind heart, brave heart, and very passionate, that someone who can stay elegant in the difficult situation as well, just as like a lotus blooming in the dirty water.
And I'm interested to hear more about this zero waste principle. How does that work? And is it a personal passion of yours, or is it client driven? Is this something that your clientele is demanding?
Yeah, it's to achieve this zero waste principle. I have a very flexible concept of collection, that I don't develop whole collection from scratch every season, which is very wasteful and also very risky for as a designer. And instead of that, I try to mix up a previous collection, upcycle it and recycle it. So we always have new edition coming up, but to fresh look. But we are keeping the waste minimum. Yeah.
So you incorporate previous pieces from previous collections into the new collections always.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk to me now about the Korean principle of sonnim. So of treating customers with the same care that you would treat a guest. I mean, I know that, for example, here at Genesis, there's also a brand rooted in South Korea. This plays a big part in terms of the service culture. How important is it for your customers to feel taken care of?
Yeah, I can remember that we always say 손님은 왕이다, that the customer is always the king in the service sector. But yeah, of course, it's very important to me as well, because it is about. It's not about just client. It's about Barbara. It's about Iris. It's about Christoph. It's knowing them and really share mutual world to each other. Yeah, very important for me too.
What about you? I mean, what for you are the core aspects of the modern luxury experience?
I think for me, as a consumer, also like to be recognized as an individual. Yeah,
which is actually what a lot of the modern luxury brands, of course, they focus on, but they offer personalized experience, because effectively it saves you time, right? I mean, especially as a parent.
Yeah, very true.
So, speaking of being a mother, it's a relatively new role for you. Your son is about two?
Yeah.
Two?
Yeah, two.
So, what has it been like for you to do both?
I think it has been another level of challenge. It's really making impossible possible. Yeah, it's really a big challenge.
I think many parents in the room could agree. Working parents, it's another level of challenging. All right, so Nina, thank you very much. It's time now to open the floor to any questions we might be having from the audience. Anybody out there curious to know about entrepreneurship, fashion?
My question is actually two. The first one is, in which city in Switzerland did you start to do everything? And my second question is, do you ever see yourself also like in the terms of like Fashion Week and couture, or do you see yourself very, very like on this line of the brand? Like in terms of Fashion Week, if it interests you, how do you see the brand evolve?
Thank you. Firstly, I've been quite everywhere, like starting in Olten. I think no one would, I don't know, would be fan of living there, but really Stauf.
It's quiet. It's quiet.
Burgdorf and Staufen and Lenzburg. Yeah, I've been quite everywhere, but start was Olten. Yeah, Fashion Week. Actually, I am following Motsu's scene, but if we are talking about this main fashion cities like Paris Fashion Week or London, I have come to notice that, of course, I have been thinking about this launching a big debut show in London or Paris, which can be also costly, also risky. I really wanted to do this, but recently, especially after pandemic, I came to notice that the huge importance of domestic market and to go further to this main city's sparkling fashion week, you have to be very authentic and stable in domestic market. Otherwise, it just doesn't work, which is not really often thought by new designers. It was hard to recognize this, but it's a valuable lesson for me.
Nina, it's very impressive what you achieved until today. And I was wondering, if you look back on your journey as an entrepreneur, was there some kind of key learning you took with you? And if you were to do it all over again, would you like change something or do something different?
As I just mentioned, I am still such a newbie. I'm just a beginner, so I'm always on a learning phase. But so far, it has been a long 3 years, and the most valuable learning was that I just don't have to be too emotional about mistakes and small failures, because it has been just after the failures that I thought it was a failure. Oh my God, I'm not done. Now I'm finished. But just a moment after that, there was a small success following through. So I just shouldn't have been too emotional every time. That was, yeah.
All right, we out of questions. I've got one more question for you, which is about your creative process. When does this happen? Do you have a sketchbook that you are always doodling in, or do you have like a zone time where you say, okay, now I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna create? How does that work?
I really wish that I can have this time, because I'm always 24 hours with my baby. I do design these days just in my head, just while doing work for my baby, putting him to sleep, and I'm designing in my bed.
So when you get a moment, then you just run off to something that you can draw on.
Yeah, I just take a memo on my handy, and then if I have like 5 minutes, I do the drawing.
So if we don't have any more burning questions, I don't see any hands, then we are going to say thank you very much, Nina.
Thank you so much, Anna.
It was such a pleasure. Let's put our hands together. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.